But I think if I did just like a big old hangover here and made this 5 inches wide, then I could miter along here, miter one here, miter one here, and go that way. Yeah, I can draw a straight line. So we have to actually measure out what 3 stacks of this is. And that's gonna be, my guess is 1 7/16, 1 3/8 plus.
I'll probably say it more than once today, but I'm leaving in more of the measures and cuts and checks and trial and error because it's something most YouTubers like to cut out. Be sure to stay out of the way when you're letting your blade spin down. I think it's important once in a while, especially on precise detail work like this, to show that it's not just as simple as, and so I set my blade to blah blah blah, and expecting the cut to come out perfectly on the first try. Shaved heads can't forget sunscreen when working outside.
It takes a while to fuss these pieces up to the right width, but we've just got the first 3 test pieces should be ready. And that looks like it's gonna actually end up being kind of okay. This last piece I forgot can be flat cut and should be flat cut. But what we're trying to do is establish if the general principle and idea that I have of how to make these is gonna work out.
Today's video is also another one of those YouTubers don't really show you the process, they just show you the results of the process. A lot of them will have to spend a lot of time off screen trying to figure out what they're going to do and how. So I'm letting you see all the steps of figuring it out.
So like that's what I can do with just clamps, and it's not quite ideal. So what I'm hoping is that I can get this lined up pretty well and then come along with the pin nailer, just tap it in like that. And this will, you know, have been already glued and whatnot. So the purpose of this test is kind of twofold. One is I want to get an idea of what it'll be like to use this to nail stuff together. Just like run through the haptics, the kinematics of it, get a feel for it. And the other is I want to check and make sure that once these are together, if I want to come along with a clamp here and say we're going to clamp right above one of these nails, that the nail will hold the wood in place instead of... You can see that that clamp is just going to squish that wood out of the way. That looks like that'll do there. I mean, it's holding it, and then I can get some decent clamping pressure on it. That'll set up the glue. You can tell that there's a bit of a gap here with just the nail. So if I can come along with a clamp and squeeze that gap away, we'll have a much better glue joint there. That's what I bought this for. Trying really hard to get stuff to line up, and the wood did bend up a little bit. It is a lot easier than fussing with tapes and clamps alone. But I mean, you absolutely can just like, pew, wow, that goes. And then it would be glue this guy in. See, then we can do this and maybe go bottom up, and then I won't have to fill these bottom holes. And I can get one in there, and then I can try to squeeze this over a bunch and get one in there. And what I'm thinking is after I get all these nails in, I can come along with a pile of clamps and try to get some pressure on this whole assembly. Yeah, you can see how like I can squeeze the glue out and then I let the pressure off, this glue gets sucked back in. So these aren't really applying any pressure. They're just sort of holding it in place until I can get the clamps in. And then aside from a little bit of sanding and a little tiny bit of filling, this one is done.
I don't have infinite clamps like most YouTubers, so I had to wait for the glue to dry before I could start putting together the next piece of stair nosing.
It smells like cigarettes.
I figured while I was waiting for that, I could start prepping the stairs, and that meant cleaning off a whole bunch of old nasty gunk.
All right, let's have a look at the yellowness of the glue here. And that's looking pretty yellow still. I can keep scraping this down a bit. Well, that's kind of a hack. What I did there was I was using the blade, but going backwards. So instead of pushing into it and getting caught on, you know, digging into the grain, digging into the wood, I was still using the sharp tips of the blade here, but by drawing it backwards, it's just gonna be scraping the top instead of cutting into the surface. And that seems to work really well.
Yes, I did eventually remember that I have a shop vac outside and started to use that instead of the little portable hand thing.
We're not quite perfectly square, but we're close as far as anyone's gonna look at it. Now we can come back to this stuff. I have to have my face in the path of that because I want to be able to kind of follow the riser. Okay, these glasses are also not good enough.
You probably already know why, but just in case, I had to cut the stair nosing back flush with the stair risers, otherwise you'd have a 3-inch nose after everything got layered up.
But there's the nosing off. That might be tile. I might be cutting up asbestos tile here right now. They wouldn't have been able to see this stuff below the vinyl. But I'm willing to bet that this is the same thing that was in the bathroom.
See? I told you I remembered about the shop vac.
So here we're just touching right on here and we're up back here. I gotta come up with a not stupid way to get a line across this back here. Man, it's tilted down and left. That's frustrating. I mean, I can't fix it. It's just gonna be a bit of a fuss.
My solution to leveling the stairs was to, again, go back to the self-leveling concrete. So here I am putting in some little strips for forms. Then of course I have to fill in all the gaps and cracks and holes. And to smooth it out this time, I'm using one of my little red pry bars. These things are amazing, especially for installing windows. The last bit of prep is to get 2 coats of primer on all the steps where I'll be putting the self-leveling concrete. And by all, I mean both. Ad-libbing is hard, okay? Give me a break.
Tear. So that should be 0.36 kegs, which gives me 1.9, almost 2 kegs. So I want 2.3 kegs. 2.3 kegs, good job, Moose. Now we want half a kegs in this, because we got 5 pounds and it's 1 kegs per 10 pounds. So we'll zero this, try to get half a kegs of water in it. 0.8 kegs, 0.7 kegs, well, we're getting there. 0.55 kegs, just a touch less. Oh, that might have been too much. I'm okay with that. All right, so this instructicates. This tells us, mix for 2 minutes and then put it down. Really, only 2 minutes? I guess so. I don't think I've ever mixed this stuff by hand before. I think I've managed to scrape the whole bottom though. Just a very little bit to start. Now, as usual with this stuff, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a heckin' lot better than it was. So we're going to get a fair amount of this in here. We're going to have some scraping of this floor to do later, and that's okay. Oh, it's gonna be really, really, really close. I think I'll be okay, just barely okay.
I'm leaving a little bit more of the pour for the second step in than I normally would because I wanted to show off one of my weirdly unique talents. I'm able to guess an almost perfect amount of material more often than is normal. So yes, I am scraping the absolute bottom of the bucket here and even picking up some drops off the floor, but it's just the right amount.
All right, well, I think that's gonna be acceptable. I'm pleased by this. I'm satisfied. I'm gonna have some much more level stairs in both directions.